CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
All right, well, there was certainly some interesting announcement earlier in the week. Simon Watts, the Minister of Local Government, and Chris Bishop, Minister of pretty much everything, RMA, reform, announced that local government is, well, all the councils have got 3 months to come up with plans. And if they don't come up with plans in that time to amalgamate, change the way they're going to change their whole system, the government's going to do them for it. So I thought, well, that was quite interesting. Let's talk to a regional council chair. Deon Swiggs is the chair of Environment Canterbury. And by the sound of it, what Minister Watts said to me yesterday on the show, they're out of a job in 2 years' time by 2028. G'day, Deon. Welcome to the show, mate. Appreciate it. Did you know you're out of a job in 2 years' time?
Andy, the first proposal that the government put out in December had us out of a job in middle of 2027, which was in the middle of our term. So one of the things that we, as a regional sector, were like, yep, we understand that this is likely the direction of the government, and let's work to making sure that we can see out our term so we can get through the work that we've got in front of us.
Okay, well, so now you get to stay till 2028, and at that point, regional councils will cease to exist by the sound of it. And then it's up to the district councils and the city councils to come up with a plan on how the local government is going to work in any region. What's the stage of you guys talking to? And that, I think that announcement, what was it, on Monday or Tuesday, has caught, I think, a lot of district councils and city councils by surprise. Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't actually surprised at all. We've been talking about this for quite some time. I think the Canterbury Regional Council, we were talking about what future governance arrangements would look like in Canterbury probably for the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, especially when the RMA reforms were announced, and the government made it very clear when they announced the RMA reforms that change was coming, and that the way that we interface in our regional sectors, in our regional part of our, what we do, our farms and our all that stuff is going to change. And so we've been preparing for this at a regional council. We have been talking to our district councils through the mayoral forum. I've been talking to the mayors. We kind of knew that it was coming, but I think what's caught people off guard here is the 3 months to do a head start proposal. And that's the bit that I think everybody's sort of got their mind to right now, is that head start, 3 months. That's quite quick to go to a whole region, especially Canterbury, to work together to go, where are the boundaries going to be, and bring your communities along with you. Because the one thing that I'm really worried about if we try and do this too quickly is leaving our communities behind, because there are communities who need to have a voice in this process as well.
Yeah, well, we're talking about consultation here, and I asked Minister Watts about that yesterday, and he said, oh, no, well, yeah, they can do that, but he also said, well, they've been talking about this for quite some time, and we really just needed to get it underway, because otherwise he kind of alluded to the fact that they'd just keep talking forever and nothing would happen, and almost like this, no, we're going to pull the trigger on it, you've got 3 months, and if you don't get it done in 3 months, then we're going to do it to you. Is that, how do you consult with the community on change of this magnitude in 3 months? It's almost impossible, isn't it?
It's fighting words. The government has got their fighting words. That's their narrative. But if you really do look at what the backstop process, and I hate that word, backstop. We've got to change it. But the backstop process, which they will design in 2027, if a region, let's say Canterbury, we put a proposal in and the government goes, nah, you're going to go into the backstop process. That means that we will continue through till our 2028 as a regional council. In 2028, we won't have elected membership for my job and for my councillor's job, but the regional council will still exist, and the governance of that regional council will be a transitional government of mayors and some appointed people to do that transition over that next term. We don't know exactly what that will look like. The government will design that and tell us in 2027, but there's fighting words from the government, and then there's the reality of what they're putting down on words.
Okay, so I want to talk about what the governance structure for, say, Canterbury might look like. And I know, for anyone watching this going, okay, well, you're just talking about Canterbury, but this is a national issue, right? Every single region around the country is dealing with exactly the same thing. But first, Deon, I want to talk to you about your organisation, the Environment Canterbury. You've got staff, you've got officers, you've got district plans, you've got annual plans, you've got 10-year plans. All of that work continues, right? In 2028, what happens? Where do your staff go? What's the structure, what happens to all your infrastructure? I mean, these are specialists, some of these people, in water management and forest and all of this stuff. They got to go somewhere. I mean, does all of their jobs get disestablished and they reapply for their jobs back in the new structure? What actually happens?
And yeah, these are the million questions that we still don't have the answers to. The one answer that I do have in this respect is that the work still needs to be done. There is nothing changing in legislation about the flood management work, the biosecurity, the biodiversity, getting rid of wilding pines, wallabies, all of those things, our coastlines. Everything that the council does in our public transport in our cities, that all across the country, still needs to be done in another entity potentially in the future. So there will still be jobs. I don't know if there'll be less jobs, because I don't think you're going to all of a sudden have a whole lot of efficiencies in creating systems, and there's a whole much more efficient in terms of local governance and how you deliver it, because the work still needs to be done. But that is where the disruption is going to be. And what we're saying to our staff here at our council, and I think almost all the councils that I've been speaking to are saying the same thing, is that their work needs to be done. People that need to interface with us, especially on our farms, all of our non-regulatory work that we do with our farmers, that work will continue. We will still do those plans. We do have questions about some of our longer-terming planning. The government has said you still have to do it. Some of it's just nuts. We shouldn't be doing a 10-year plan if we're not going to have an organisation for 10 years. So can we make some efficiencies in there so that we can continue delivering on the ground? But yeah, there are a lot of questions that are still unanswered in this respect.
What about consents then? Consenting is done between the consentee and the governing organisation, right? Do all of those consents just get transferred to the new entity? Because no one knows what they're going to look like.
Yeah, so all of the consents that are existing will transfer to a new entity. The Resource Management Act reforms that are going through at the moment will change consenting very, very drastically. So once all the Resource Management Act reforms are in place, the new system will potentially look at compliance will be different, you'll have consenting will be different, there will be less consents. So I think that process needs to go simultaneously, and we need to find some stability in that space. And that's been the caution that we said to the government: if they're going to get rid of regional councils in the middle of 2027, right in the middle of transition your RM, there's going to be a whole lot of disruption. We're not perfect, and we recognise that, but we need to make sure that we have stability so that we don't lose our productivity in our markets.
And a lot of uncertainty for staff, I would imagine, a very difficult time for them, still not knowing what's going to happen, in a couple of years. One of the issues that I'm interested in is when it comes to the organisations themselves. Oh, sorry, I'll just go back a step. I put it to the minister yesterday, and I was talking to somebody in a local district council, and they said to me that the 3-month period is almost impossible. They felt they were being set up for fail, and the government has probably already got a lot of planning done to what structures will look like using the backstop. Minister denied that quite emphatically, but that's a conclusion that's hard not to draw, isn't it?
I'll take my Canterbury Regional Council hat off here, and I'll put my hat on from the regional sector, which is across the country, and the conversations that I've been having in that space. The Head Start process is generally designed to allow the councils who have spoken to the government in this process of the last 6 months and saying, hey, look, we've got a smallish council. I'm thinking of Northland, Taranaki, the West Coast, for example, potentially. Like, they're not all of a slam dunk, but it's those councils where it would be relatively easy to amalgamate their district councils into one regional unitary authority. That is where I think the government's thinking around this Head Start process. It's relatively simple. It doesn't mess with the RM implementation, and you can get those things done if your communities agree to that. We've got larger regions across New Zealand: Waikato, Canterbury, some of the other ones, Horizons around in the North Island. They will be difficult, and I do not think the government has anything in their mind about what the backstop process looks like, apart from potentially looking like a existing council that still exists, so the council organisation still exists, and the governance changes in 2028, which means that you'll have probably the mayors who will be elected on the mandate to take that change to the region and then make that change in that term.
One of the things, so let's talk specifically about what this might look like for a region like Canterbury, and this can be extrapolated out right across the country. But say, for example, and this was put to me a while ago, that a potential structure for Canterbury would be Christchurch City Council becomes a unitary authority for the Christchurch City Council region. The rest of the councils in the Canterbury region join up and become one unitary authority for the rest of it, which means you've got an urban and a rural kind of split. And that takes away the issues that I think a lot of people have had about, rural losing their voice and being overpowered by a large unitary body. Is that something that could be possible here?
Yes, so that is definitely the possibility. The government was very clear, and especially through the feedback that we'd been giving them about catchment scale delivery of regional functions, and the government has recognised through that process of the rapid review of the council's functions at a regional scale is the right place for these things to happen. So they are thinking that. So they've put that as an explicit point within their proposals, and they are looking at the rural and urban communities, making sure that those communities are served in the right way. So the question I have is, are we going back to the future here around town and country kind of councils, or are we moving into something slightly different? That's a conversation that I think we're going to have quite quickly.
Okay, final point, because I am running out of time. When I did talk to the minister yesterday, I asked him whether regional boundaries will be sacrosanct. And is there a possibility of us moving some of the district, the regional boundaries, some councils moving across? And I'm thinking here Southland, for example, Southland and Otago, even the West Coast, maybe Bulla, Tasman. What do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any boundaries are sacrosanct. We are having conversations in Canterbury, for example, about the Waitaki. So part of Waitaki district is in Canterbury and the rest of it is in Otago. But when you take it that high-level catchment scale approach that the government is making sure from a water management perspective, Waitaki has a fair bit of that catchment in terms of all of our Great Lakes that are energy generation and down the Waitaki River and Oamaru and those areas. So those are going to have to happen. They're not sacrosanct, but do we break regions up, and how does that look like? Is our country ready for breaking our regions up? And
the bigger question is, what does that do to our Super Rugby franchises, and do you have to start supporting the Highlanders or the Crusaders, which we all know would be highly problematic, right?
Hey, this is the best place to finish this, because that argument, I think, could probably make the boundaries. Could we have a super South Island? This is the question that I think we're getting ripped off on the South Island from this government in terms of our funding. So could we have a super South Island and actually just go stick it to them and say, we're here, we're ready?
Good place to leave it, mate. Deon Swiggs there, Chair of Environment Canterbury. Thank you so much for your time on the show. We will talk again. Have a good one.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.